Started? All right. Hey, everybody. My name is David Abel. I am a professor in the journalism department where I teach environmental journalism. I also spent many years as a reporter covering climate change and other environmental issues at the Boston Globe, so it is really nice to be able to bridge those two worlds today. I am very happy to be joined by a stellar panel of brilliant colleagues. Let me start off just saying, giving an introduction to Lucy Hutira on the end, who is a distinguished professor. I just want to say that again, distinguished, and now chair, I'm very sorry about that, which means a lot of administrative work in the Earth and Environment Department here at BU, and she's also, and this always has to be said whenever introducing Lucy Hutira, she is a genius. She won a MacArthur Genius Award. Madeline Scammell, closest to me, also a genius in her own right. I know her well enough to say that. Is an associate professor of environmental health at BU School of Public Health. And Anna Goldman in the middle is a primary care physician and medical director of sustainability at Boston Medical Center. Let me just say that if anybody has any questions they would like to ask, I think you know the drill now. There's a QR code. And at the end, if there is time, I will be happy to ask any questions from the audience. I was also asked to mention that everyone on the panel is affiliated with the university's Institute for Global Sustainability. Thank you very much for that. So I thought that this would be an opportunity for each of you guys to share a bit about your work and how it relates to addressing climate change here in the Boston area and well beyond. Lucy, I will start with you. You are an environmental ecologist who studies the impacts of urbanization on climate change, among many other things. Your work has led to a host of stories that have appeared in the Boston Globe, some of which have been on the front page. And why don't you just catch us up with what is the latest in your research? What are you working on these days?
Well, it's been really fun. Since I started here at BU, Boston became the laboratory where pretty much everything I do starts. So I spent many years working on greenhouse gas emissions and trying to think about pathways with meeting climate action plans and how do we measure progress. So how do we actually measure the gases changing in the city's atmosphere to see if the policies are working? More recently, I've been doing a lot of work thinking about how do we cool our cities? So what can we do to actively mitigate the impacts of climate change, increasing temperatures in cities? And so we've been doing a lot of work building models and really detailed maps and running scenarios for how do we reduce temperatures, where can we have the biggest impact, what might it cost, and thinking about how do we optimize these solutions to have the largest overall impact, but the largest overall impact on the most vulnerable of our populations.
So just a quick follow-up. I was reading recently that the city had asked you to look at whether you could design a model to figure out how to reduce emissions through zoning and other city ordinances, and I'm just wondering what has come of that work.
It's a long story that I'll make short, but the Planning and Development Agency wanted to think about, as buildings were being redeveloped and rezoned, was there something that they could include in those design plans to have a real impact and reduce some of the local temperatures, minimize the broader impacts on the city. And the folks from the BDPA were great and persistent. And I had no idea how to give them what they wanted because the model didn't exist. And they persisted, and we came up with a way. So we built a new model, and it's actually been an incredible ride over the last few years, where we built the model after the city asked for something that didn't exist. And we built it first for Boston and then tested it for 7 different U.S. cities. The concept of, can we model this and model the impact of rezoning interventions? And last year I was on sabbatical at Google, and we operationalized it. So it is now live, this model, across 15 U.S. cities, where you can look at tree equity, you can look at the slopes of buildings, you can look at the color of roofs, and run scenarios of what if I change tree cover or albedo, and what will it do to temperatures?
Just say what albedo is.
Albedo is the reflectivity of the surface. So if you have a black coat, a black roof, it's going to absorb a lot more heat. If you can change what that reflectivity looks like, you can paint roofs white, or you can use some more advanced materials that are not necessarily white, but can also reflect a lot of the the energy.
And can you just say whether that model, whatever you operationalized at Google, is actually being used in Boston, and how?
So I don't know if it's being used in Boston. I think our timing was a little bit off because they asked for the model, but science takes a while, unfortunately. And by the time we built it and published it and then worked with Google for the release, Boston had already run a lot of their scenarios for this and was working on implementation of solutions. So they were focusing more on splash pads and some very local neighborhood level things. On the other hand, Miami and Austin, Texas were at a different point where the Google tool came along exactly when they could use it for their planning. And they've actually looked at the potential changes in temperature that this could yield, and ordinances are being changed to require, when roofs are being redone, to change what the material that's used is. It would be expensive to wholesale change every roof in the city, but they have a lifetime and they all will be replaced eventually. And it's changing what the standards are for when the time comes to replace it.
Great. Thank you. Anna, you founded a program to provide clean energy credits to low-income patients at Boston Medical Center. It is called the Clean Power Prescription Plan. Can you just share a little bit about what this program does, how it came to be, and what the state of the program is right now?
Yeah, thanks, David. And I'm just want to say thank you to the Boston Globe and to VU for having me here. It's been a really excellent day so far. So Boston Medical Center, I think many of you are familiar with us, but we are historically the city hospital, founded in the 1850s, and now we call ourselves an essential hospital, essentially a safety net for the population in Boston and regional New England. We're the largest essential hospital in New England, and more than 70% of our patients are self-identify as people of color, and more than 70% are publicly insured. So that's just the population we serve. And we screen everyone since 2017 in our primary care clinics, pediatrics, and some of our other departments for social determinants of health. So these are things like housing instability, food insecurity, difficulties with transportation that affect health outcomes that are not directly medical. And then we try to intervene. And one of those questions that we ask is, do you have trouble paying your utility bills? And the answer to that was yes for many of our patients. Massachusetts is one of the most expensive energy markets in the U.S., third most expensive. But we were not doing a whole lot other than providing a letter to prevent disconnection of service to somebody who, if someone has received one of these disconnection letters, a provider like myself can write a letter to prevent that if they have a chronic illness, which almost all of our patients do. So it's at the same point I was involved in climate advocacy outside of work, and I saw that a lot of people were starting to get clean energy into their energy portfolios and saving money on that, but our patients weren't accessing it. So I pitched the idea to our chief sustainability officer. At the time, he was our facilities head, and he's since transitioned into sustainability as his full-time role. And his name is Bob Biggio, and he's my partner in this work and my boss. But so he was in the process of building a solar array and actually said, if you want to try to get these credits to our patients, we could do that. And it was an incredibly exciting moment for me. And now, so how the program works is we have this solar array. It was originally intended for on-site generation. And I want to give credit to Senator Markey, who was here earlier talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. Because of that, we knew we could get extra subsidies if we directed the energy to our patients instead of for our own needs. And so we were able to set up this program, and essentially we generate energy bill credits that goes to our account at BMC, and then we're able to transfer that through Eversource, which is also a partner in this work, to patients who report to us that they can't afford their bills. That's how it works.
And can you give us more of a sense of the scope, like how many patients take part and how much money are you actually giving to these folks?
Yes. So so we see it as an energy intervention. We're only holding patients in the program for 12 months. They get $600 over 12 months, approximately $50 per month. And we can assist 80 households at a time at that level because of the size of the solar array. We're basically limited when we felt that was a meaningful amount of subsidy or of defraying the cost of their utilities. I mean, for some of our patients, they have debt in the thousands, sometimes tens of thousands. So it's for those patients, it's not as meaningful, but for many of our patients, it is about 30 to 50% of their bills, depending on how much they use and how energy efficient their homes are. We also refer to Mass Save through the program and through to get them on the R2 rate, which is discount rate for utilities, and get them into the LIHEAP program to get energy assistance. So we do a kind of a suite of programs. Yeah.
Is there any talk about expanding this program so that you might build solar off?
Yes.
Premises?
So thank you for asking that question. So I'm fundraising to try to build more solar on our campus because that's an obvious way to expand. But the most exciting way that I see to expand is to actually have partners. So anyone listening to this could do this. If you have a solar array, and we can do it with residential customers, we can also do it with institutions and real estate owners. If you have a solar array or are planning on building one, it's very easy to transfer credits. Now you can even transfer across utilities because of new regulations through the Department of Public Utilities. You can transfer credits to support our patients. It doesn't have to be, obviously not the entire value of the credits you're getting from your solar, but just some to support the patients at BMC, we pretty much capture the most high needs patients in the state. We have also the largest Medicaid plan in the state. So, and we can get it, there's 700,000 patients in that who are all high needs, and we can get it to them. So if anyone's interested, please contact me. Yeah.
Madeline, I'll come to you in 1 second. But one other question: was this controversial when you were trying to make this happen? I mean, I imagine there are some constituency within the university or the hospital saying we have our own needs. There are lots of expenses. Why are we diverting this to what might be considered something peripheral?
So actually, Boston Medical Center has invested very deeply in sustainability, and it's actually been a strategy for us. So I'm new to this role. I've been in this position for a little over a year. But Bob, who I mentioned before, Bob Biggio, has been doing this work at BMC for 14 years now, and he actually really turned around the financial situation at BMC through investment in sustainable building. He actually downsized the campus through more efficient use of space, and then invested in clean energy and power purchase agreements, and also more efficient building design, like this building. It's also an incredible building. So we've saved a ton of money through these energy interventions, and that has built incredible support at the highest levels of the hospital for programs like this. And it really started at an operational level, but because he's now kind of passionate about bringing our patient population in, they are the most vulnerable, kind of frontline communities So he really loved the idea of bringing them in, and because he's built up so much support at the institution, it was not a difficult sell. People supported it. So
I wonder if it'll be more difficult to expand. Madeline, among other things, you have studied heat islands in places such as Chelsea and East Boston. Can you share a bit about that work and what some of your takeaways have been from doing this kind of research about heat islands, and where do things go from there, go from where you left off?
Yeah, thank you. I could listen to these two talk all day, so I wasn't rushing. But yeah, I live in the city of Chelsea, and I have for many years. It's not far from Boston, but it is its own city. It's 1.8 square miles of residential zoned land. And I study heat among workers in Central America. So it was in 2017 that I saw an article by Martha Biebinger in WBUR talking about urban heat islands, and she highlighted the city of Chelsea in particular, and people suffering with health problems. For example, dialysis was the example I remember most, having to go to dialysis because of their kidney failure during extreme heat events and just suffering from the heat. So with my colleagues at BU, Patricia Fabian, who is my co-lead on the Chelsea East Boston heat study, we've partnered with Green Roots, which is a grassroots environmental justice organization in the city of Chelsea. The leaders have been organizing for access to parks and green spaces and the benefits of a healthy environment in the city for 30 years. We partnered with them to really understand what are the hot spots within the city. There's the urban heat island is not monolithic, right? So there's cool pockets and hot pockets. And we've measured all over the city for 5 years now, seeing about a 10-degree difference between the coolest and the hottest spots. And also differences between the entire city and Logan Airport, where the National Weather Station is located. So when there's a heat emergency or a heat warning issued, we feel it first, and we feel it most, pretty much across the board, which has an impact on the Department of Public Health, on DPW. We've worked closely with people in both Boston and Chelsea throughout the process to identify opportunities to intervene, to create hydration stations, white roofs, cool bus stops, misting stations, even, I could go on and on. Just one more thing.
Cut you off when I want.
One more thing, a cool block. We identified one spot in the city that on the land surface temperature maps, which are done by satellite, it's hot. And I know from walking down that street, it is very hot and sometimes blinding. And a lot of people live there, but also the Boys and Girls Club is located there. So with the city and with the Boys and Girls Club and with residents organized through Green Roots, we identified this block that was actually very hot as the block we would make cool. And it's now the cool block. Pavement has been redone so that it's more reflective and not so absorbent of the heat.
Where exactly is this?
Is Congress and Highland Ave in area 4. Does that mean anything to
That's
you?
Chelsea?
Yeah, in the city of Chelsea, yeah. Sorry, it could have been East Boston. It could have been. But in the city of Chelsea. And actually the owner of a parcel of land that had been more or less abandoned and used informally as a parking lot was donated to the city with the condition that it be used as a park for the residents. So that's happened now, and we're still hoping that the Boys and Girls Club can get a white roof.
Is there something in your view that the city should be doing that it isn't doing, or what can it be doing more of to reduce heat islands?
I think the city is doing a lot to reduce heat islands. I think what would be a huge next step is for the owners of rental properties, like the triple deckers we see across these cities, to to do some energy retrofits to make cooling and heating more attainable for the residents of those buildings. And I think that will take powers beyond each of the cities with state and federal investments. But what the residents of the participants of our study, where we monitored in their homes and collected qualitative data about their experiences coping with heat, they talked a lot about the vulnerability of workers in urban areas suffering from extreme heat. And when you do a search in the scientific literature for occupational studies of heat, you find thousands of them among agricultural workers. You find very few among workers in small businesses in urban centers. And they're the same people who work in a hot spot and then go home to a hot building and suffer with the bills. So I think we could do more to support workers as well.
If you had a wish list, though, of like 2 or 3 things that you want Mayor Wu to focus on, what would that be?
Mayor Wu or Fidel Maltez, the city manager for Chelsea?
Sorry. Yes, excuse me.
Either one of them would be great.
I'm thinking, though, beyond just Chelsea.
Urban mayor or manager, I would say the energy retrofits, the cool roofs, and transportation, so that people don't suffer on their way to the bus stop, that they can be cool at the bus stop, and hydration stations. Not rocket science.
Got it. I think this feeds a little bit into some of the work that you've done, Lucy. You have studied the urban canopy, and we have had a spotty record here in Boston about maintaining or increasing our urban canopy despite repeated efforts. My understanding from a story that we published in the Globe a few years ago was that something like 40% of new city trees die within 7 years of being planted. And Mayor Wu started something called a forestry that she dubbed the Forestry Corps to try to turn that around and grow the urban canopy. Can you give us a sense of where things stand? Is her administration making any progress? Have we figured out how to keep new trees alive?
I think she's done a lot, and some of this work even started before Mayor Wu was in office, of really thinking about a master plan and having a coordinated effort and an intentionality in both what to plant, where to plant it, and how to plant it to try to foster survival of these trees. But it's a tough environment for a plant to grow in. If you think about we actually were out last weekend identifying some trees to do some sampling on this summer. And, you know, some of the largest trees that we have across the city are growing in such difficult locations. The tree pit, the entire stem occupies the whole tree pit. The amount of space that these trees have to literally spread their roots is so limited. And I think in a lot of this planning, we need to not just plan to add X number of trees and have a nice headline of a count of trees that we've added, but invest in keeping those trees alive, which there's been huge progress in adding irrigation to these, adding the gator bags around the trees, because those first few years are really critical in getting the roots established. But it's about keeping these larger trees alive. And if I had a dollar for dollar investment to make, I would invest at both ends of the life cycle. But it takes decades from when you plant a tree before it's really offering real ecosystem services, right? You plant quite small trees, And it's the large trees that are evaporating the water, offering the shade and cooling our city and creating, that livable fabric that we want to live in. And so we have to be investing in both sides of that equation, and investment in maintenance is not very sexy. It doesn't make beautiful headlines of, I just planted 500 new trees. But we need to be planting those 500 trees, and we need to be keeping those larger trees alive. And I think some of that thinking is reflected in the master plan that the city is adopting. But it's expensive.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to add to that in Chelsea, too, there's a tree keeping program. And it's really great for young kids to have the tree that's in front of their house that they're maintaining. But there are also, in addition to drought and snow and salt and physical threats to the trees, gas leaks. And I think at BU, and there are nonprofit groups in this area that have done a lot of work to map the gas leaks and try and get on top of them, but they are definitely killers of trees.
Yeah. We have only a few minutes left, so lightning round here. How has the wrecking ball of the Trump administration affected each of your work?
It's been really hard. It's hard to keep morale up. It's hard to watch my friends losing their jobs in the federal government. It's hard to watch institutions that have been built up over decades get wrecked in what seems like overnight. At the same time, the needs are more real than ever. Yesterday, NOAA released the most recent numbers from the Mauna Loa CO2 Observatory. Last year, we had the largest growth rate in the amount of CO2 in our atmosphere that has been observed since record keeping started there. The problem is not going away. We could talk about eliminating measurements to eliminate climate anxiety, which was actually in a press release from the Department of Commerce, which is what NOAA's under. And I'm not sure that burying our head in the sand of, if we don't measure it, the problem goes away, is really how we move forward in this. And at the same time, I've had a huge amount of hope at how much public and not so public resistance there has been in saving data sets, saving models, saving streams of information and knowledge, so that when we rebuild better, there's something to rebuild in the science infrastructure of this country.
Great. We're running low on time. Thank you. Yeah. Anna and Madeline, would you take a stab at answering that question? And also, if there is anything that gives you hope in these difficult times?
I mean, I really appreciated the eloquence with which you expressed that. I will just say that, in my own little small corner of work, I'm just waiting to see what the outcome with the Inflation Reduction Act will be. I think that was critical legislation, and Senator Markey did a great job talking about it before, and I think a lot of it will come out in budget reconciliation, what happens with allocation. And what gives me hope is I've actually just been reading a lot of history, and I think America's been through a lot of terrible times before. We went through a civil war, so I'm hoping that we're a country that's sort of early in our history, and that we come out of this and learn from it.
Hopefully it doesn't get as bad as going through another civil war. Madeline.
Yeah, I taught for the first time this semester a course on climate change and health equity. I was really looking forward to teaching it, and now and this semester arrived, and it was a really different experience than I was hoping for. But really, empathy is not a sin, and all the work we do for sustainability will really have outcomes we'll never see, because they're in parts of the world that are experiencing the hazards of climate change far worse than we. Where I find hope is in connecting with those parts of the world and with each other, and with other funding sources than the federal government, the Barr Foundation, the Boston Foundation, the World Trust, other much larger foundations that are supporting this work, and I hope others come out of the woodwork.
Lucy?
One more bit of hope. I'm really hopeful because I live in a city like Boston, and cities are more willing to continue the work in this sustainability space and find creative ways to fund it. So if I had to choose anywhere in the world to be, I'm in the right place, and I'm proud of our city for that.
Great. Lucy and Madeline, thank you so much for your wisdom. Deeply appreciate it. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Sabrina Shankman.
Thank you so much. That was so great. And thanks to everyone for tuning in, those who are here, those who tuned in online. What a great day of events and conversations. More to come on that front. We are now, would like to invite you to stick around. There's some refreshments for the next half hour or so. So get to know each other, enjoy hanging out. And thanks to the sponsors, thanks to Elephant Energy, thanks to BU for having us. Yeah, all right. See you next year.